So hey and what's up guys? I'm your friend Cruz and we are back again with our new video where we are going to be building the rest of the APIs, right? So what are the remaining APIs? In the previous video, as we have built the APIs that are used for authentication, so in this video we'll be sorry, building the remaining APIs that is for creating the to-do, deleting the to-do, updating the to-do and also like getting the to-do, right? So let's get started. And as I mentioned in the previous video, like how do we create routes, right? So yeah, it's pretty simple. We can basically, we have to create a folder inside API, right? We can name it as create to do, right? And inside of this folder, we need to create a file called as route.js. And yeah, we are nearly done with it. And here, what do we need to do is basically like import next response or next slash server. And then we can basically create a handler function for this route, right? So let's create a handler function that is export function and it is going to be an asynchronous function. So let's add async to it. And what kind of a request we are gonna make? Like when we are creating some to do, definitely we are going to be making a post request to our database, right? So post request to actually create a to do, right? Okay. So it will be taking requests, and now what we can do, we can like create a try catch block, right? To basically handle errors. So it will basically be responding to next response JSL and should basically return in any scenario where we encounter some error that is error 500. And okay, now in the try block, what we need to do? We need to first of all basically check whether or not our user is authorized to create a to-do or not. Because if the user is not even logged in, so how can he create a to-do? Sounds fair enough. So basically, we need to handle that using the JWT token which we have generated. If you remember, in the previous video when we had logged into our system, we had generated a JWT token which is sent as a cookie, which will be stored in the cookie of your browser, using which we will be authorizing the user, right? So basically, here we will be basically taking up the token and we'll be getting the token from request dot cookie dot, it's not going to be cookie address, it's going to be cookies dot get token and optional chaining and value. So this is basically going to be giving us the token. And if we don't get any token here, then we can straight away return that the user is unauthorized dot JSON, you know, um, user unauthorized, please log in, right? And status code. Okay, let's check out what's the status code for unauthorized. Status code for unauthorized is 401. Okay, okay, so it's going to be 401. Okay, and then if we genuinely have the token, then we can proceed further, right? So, okay. So let's proceed further. And now, what are the things that we are going to be getting from the to-do, right? Let's move on to the to-do schema. There it is going to be a title, a description, a deadline. Okay. And there should be like, it's complete and created by. Okay, so created by is something like you can take it from the user, right? So basically, these are the things that are basically required, right? Okay, sounds fair enough. So let's take the title, description, and deadline from the body, right? Sorry, not from the body, like that, like await, request, the JSON, right? And mm, okay, and then what can we do? We can basically then check for whether or not if the title is fine or not, right? Description and the line, like if either of them are missing, then you can like throw another response, like some of the important fields are missing, which we can basically pick from here only, right? This response, similar response to that one. And okay, and now what more we need to check? Now the title is okay, fine. Then we can basically make a check for a description, like we should have a description of length, like minimum length. If the description dot length is less than, for example, 50 characters, then we can return next response dot JSON and other right description is too short, right? And then we can give a status code of what to do like that. And then the deadline, right? So as I mentioned, we have to basically validate the deadline as well. Like for example, if the deadline is less than the current date, then it's very much not logical to say like, to set a deadline that has already passed, right? So we need to check for that, right? So we're checking for that using new date deadline. If it is less than, right, new date, that is the current date, then we can, if the deadline is less than the current date, then we can basically provide next response dot JSON and deadline should be greater than the present date, right? And we can provide status code of, like this is an unprocessable entity, right? And what else can we basically check? I think we have nearly checked all of the possible scenarios. Now, I guess it's time that basically we create the to do. So, whenever we create the to do by default, if we say, right, by default, we have to basically, provide the, you know, the is completed as true. No, sorry, is completed as false, as you can see in the model. We have provided it as false, so we don't actually need to explicitly provide its value, right? So we don't need to explicitly provide its value. So what more do we need? We get all these three things, and we need this created by. So for created by, we basically need the user ID, right? So no worries, we can basically get the user ID by decoding our token. So let's check how do we do that. So first of all, let's connect to our database, right? Since we are going to be like performing some operations in the database. Okay, so const decoded and it's going to be await, sorry, it's going to be await JSON web token. like we need to import it. Okay, that's what happens. Import JSON web token from JSON web token, right? Okay, we got it. And here, what are the things that we need to do is basically verify it, right? Dot verify, right? And then we basically pass the token as we have it here. And then along with that, we need to provide the secret key, right? So as the secret key is the one we have provided in our env file, that is basically the private key, right? So basically we get the call of user process dot l dot private. Okay, that is going to be giving us the decoded thing, like the user details of the email address decoded from here, right? So we can basically query the database for this particular user ID, right? User ID away, right? We are gonna query the database for the user model, and then we can basically perform like find one, and then there is the email, and that is then decoded dot email, right? And using which we can easily get the user ID, right? And then we can finally create our new to do, right? It was new to do, right? And here we are going to provide the title, description, deadline, right? And then what more like is completed, we don't need to provide it explicitly, is basically created by, right? As far as I know, I provided it as created by. Okay, that's fine. And what should we provide it here? That is basically the user ID dot underscore ID, right? This is what we are going to today. And then we are going to do await new to do dot page, right? We are saving the new to do. And then finally we can like send back a success message or a success response that our to-do has been created successfully. So we are going to provide a next response for JSON, and it's going to be success and to-do created success, right? And then we're going to provide a status code of 200, right? And I hope it's done, right? It's nearly done. We can save it, and we can basically, you know, put this to test, right? Okay. So now the moment of truth, like let's test the create to do's API real quick, right? So it's going to be HTTP API create to do, and okay, let's make a post request, right? And let's basically provide the data, right? So the JSON data. And now let's provide the data real quick. Okay. So we got the title, right? And then this title can be like a take walk. Then there it is going to be a description, right? Like something random. Okay. It is also like going to throw us an error since we have a minimum character of like 50, like character should be there in order to like pass the check, because like or else it would return us the description is too short. So then there is a deadline that says about the like let us try to take a deadline that is already passed. So let's check like whether or not it is going an appropriate error or not. So it's 2024 03 and 31. So it should definitely throw an error. So let's test it out. It says user unauthorized, please log in. So yeah, it's correct since we haven't logged into the system. And since we are making a check that whether or not the user that is basically interacting or trying to create a to do is authorized or not, right? The authorization question. And if we check our cookies, there is no cookie right there. So what we need to do is let's first of all authenticate the user so that we get the token and then we can authorize the user to perform other things. Okay. So here we can basically take this thing, email, and then there is code cruise @gmail.com. This is basically the account which we created tomorrow while testing of the APIs. And password is basically going to be password as far as I remember. So let's send it. Yeah, it's logged in successfully. And now I guess in the cookies, you can see, yeah, we get the cookie as token, right? So let's close it. And now let's try it again, like create to do. And here, what we need to do is basically say this is the title and take walk, right? If we try to do this, it would say one or more required fields are missing. So basically, we're not actually getting the unauthorized issue now. So now it has passed that like it is the user is now authorized. The user just now have to provide a legit value, in order to pass the checks and then like create the to do. So random. So basically, at every step, I'm just trying to check whether or not it can handle the errors or not. Let's take a date that has already passed, like 2024, 03, and 31st March. It's already passed. Like today is 10th of April. So let's check it out. As you said, the description is too short. Yeah. So let's basically like take a random description. Like let's copy it and let's just paste it. Like just to meet the you know word limit. Mm, okay, I think that's fair enough, right? Now let's send it. Okay, it gives us that deadline should be greater than the present date. Definitely. So now since we are at 10th, like we can basically provide 15th April. Okay, I think this should be. And yeah, it says success to do created successfully. Now it says that our to do is created successfully, so we need to make a check here, right? Let's move on to MongoDB and let's check whether or not our to do has been created, right? So let's log into the MongoDB real quick and let's check it out. Sign in. Okay. Now we are going to be moving to the database, like to check whether or not the thing that we are looking for is there or not. Okay, so there's the thing that is we get our to do. Yeah, as we can see, uh, it have got the title, the description, then the deadline as well. That is 15th, and then is complete is by default false. We didn't need to mention it. And now it's created by whom? Created by an object ID, like it's showing the object ID of the user. So like I have logged in as code tools, right? So the object ID, as you can see, like it has at the end like 9 EP. So let's check whether or not the code tools has only made it or not. Yeah, as you can see, the object ID matches with 9 EP and it's like code tools. So it's basically being made this to do has been made by code tools, right? So yeah. So we are basically done with the you know creating the to-do part, right? Now, what about I want to like access my to-dos, right? Like if I have created my to-dos, I also want to like fetch my to-dos, right? Into the UI or whatever you like wish to, right? I would like want to render my to-dos. For that, we need to create a separate. So let's create it real quick. Like in the API, we will be creating another directory that would say my to-dos, right? And here we are going to be creating this route.js. Okay, this, yeah. So here, what we need to do is basically let's import next response and let's export async function. And what kind of function it is going to be? It is going to be a get method, right? We are trying to get something from the database, right? So it's going to be the get method. But here also, like basically, we'll be needing to like check whether or not the user is authorized or not. And that check is required because like if I have created some to do, so I definitely want to see my to do, right? Like not anyone else's to do. I just want to see my to do. So basically, we need to check the condition that okay, this to do is being created by me. So okay, so I am going to like, you know, check this to-dos, right? Like if this to-do is created by me, so when I make a get request for to fetch all my to-dos, so I should only be like receiving the response that contains the to-dos that has been created by me, right? So okay. So what can we do here is basically okay, try catch block and let's return next response. Right? Next response dot JSON, and here we can like provide some error and then also a status code of 500, and here let's basically try to you know check the token await. Okay, so request dot cookies dot get token and optional chaining and the value. That's pretty much the same thing which we were doing there. And yeah, so what we can do is like let's move on to create to do. I'm just gonna like just pick up this line and let's paste it here. Like it's the similar thing, right? And then what can we do is like we have to decode the to do, like and decode the token, right? So decode it, wait. So it's going to be like we have to import JSON web token from JSON web, sorry, JSON web tokens. Yeah. And here we need to do is JSON web token dot verify, right? The token and the secret key. Let's go to the ENV real quick and take the private key. And then what we need to do is basically take up the user ID. We also need the user ID to identify which to-do has been created by us, right? So it's the created by field in the to-dos basically holds the user ID only. So user ID and await user dot find one, and here it is going to be email and decoded dot email, and we can get the user ID from here. And then what we need to do is const to-dos, like we need to fetch the to-dos that we are having. Can we do is uh, let's uh, find by the email. Uh, no, to do doesn't have an email field, right? It has the
created by, sorry, it doesn't have the email field. So in case of the created by field, so what we need to provide to it, like created by and the like the ID, right? So we have already faced the ID, so that is user ID dot underscore ID, right? And based on this, it will be finding me the to do, which I will be finally like providing a next response dot JSON. And basically here we don't need to send some message rather than we just want to like send the to-dos that we have fetched is now, right? So yeah, so status score of 200, right? So yeah, that's pretty much fine, right? So let's save it. Now let's test it using the Postman. And here, what's the API is? It's basically my to-dos, right? My to-dos. And now it's going to be a GET request, definitely. So let's remove all this body thing. Since whenever we are making a GET request, we don't make this body thing. And somewhere we'll be getting the token or whatever it is, that we'll be getting this from the cookies and all that. So, okay, let's send it. And yeah, I got, since there's one to do only, there's nothing much complexity. I get the entire to do thing, right, as an array, right? So yeah, it's working. The VPI is working fine. And now, what more do we need to do? So we basically also need to create something called as like updating the to-do, right? Updating the state of the to-do, basically whether or not our to-do is completed or not, right? So that is also a point of concern, right? So let's try updating, like create an API that will be basically updating the to-do. So update, and also since yeah, so like we are going to be providing uh, basically, uh, update and then slash. It is going to be a dynamic route, basically. Update slash, and then along with that, we are going to be providing the, to do ID along with it. So based on that ID, like you can identify which to do we are exactly trying to update, right? So, okay, let's get into it real quick. Okay. And also, one thing we have missed, it is working now since we have already connected to our database in the previous ones. So basically, after we have like decoded all of this, so what we need is basically we actually forgot to connect to the database. Like we really need to connect to the database, right? Like before performing any of the options, like it worked in this case since in the previous requests our app was connected to the database, but like we need to actually connect to the database, so we forgot to do this, like it is very very necessary. So yeah, before we perform any database interactions, we should make sure that we connect to the database. And now, since we have created an update, so now for dynamic routing, we should create another folder, and that should follow a special convention or a pattern of naming. That is, we are using the square brackets and triple dots, and then we can, since I am like using to do ID, so it's fine. We'll go with to do ID. Like you can name anything else as per your choice, but this is the convention should be maintained, and I added to do ID. And inside this, what I need to do is add route.js. Okay. So, okay, let's get started with it. So, okay, we need to basically import next.js. response, sorry, let's response from next server, and then we are having export async function, and it is going to be what request? It is going to be a patch request, right? Since we are basically updating a part of the data, right? That is basically is completed to marking it as completed. So we are making essentially a patch request. So request and try catch block whether and then like you can return next response dot json error and going to be enter status and here this is going to be 500 and from the try block what are we going to do is basically first of all we need to basically check for it like let's pick it up from somewhere. Yeah, this thing, right? That is basically authorization. We can basically create a like separate function for that as well. Like basically so that we need to like do not repeat the code like again and again. We can do that as well. Yeah, so that would be a better idea. But okay, let's proceed to the list. And then we can basically connect to the database basically. And then basically we basically need to decode the things. So for decoded we need this, right? Right? We decode it. And now basically since we have used this to do ID that is the dynamic routing, so from there only we basically extract the to do ID so that we can actually identify that what is that particular to do which we want to update, right? So basically that we can like take from the parameters. So, like, let's name this variable as params, and then we can do request dot URL. You'll be getting the URL, and we can split it like it's basic JavaScript based on the slashes, and we are going to be taking up the request dot URL dot split at the slash and dot length like we are going to take the very last value that is going to the that is basically going to be providing us with the ID, right? Like for example, if for the sake of this video, like for like if the URL is like update slash and then like um for example, random ID, for example. So this is the ID. So what are we doing is basically we are splitting it based on this slashes, and then like we are just once it's an array of that, like it basically returns us an array. So we are basically taking the last value of the array. That is basically this, right? Since arrays are basically indexed from zero, so like we are doing minus one, right? And now we get the params for it, right? And then we can basically need to, uh, find to do. And also, like, we need to, okay, let's find the to do at first. And for finding the to do, to do, okay, that's fine. And and to do fine. And here is the ID, and here it is going to be like we're finding the basis of ID. So like we have extracted the ID from the params, right? So we are basically searching it based on that. And we like if we can't find the to like for example, in case if the user is placing some wrong parameters, like the wrong param, so obviously we cannot find that to do, right? If it's zero, then we should return a response, right? That is going to be like, error to do the found, that is status code of 404. And then what we need to do is basically now we need to basically make a check to check, like to basically check that whether or not the user that is trying to update the to-do is the rightful user or not. Like basically, I am like whether or not I'm owning the to-do or not. Like the to-do that I am trying to update should be updated or should be basically created by me, right? So basically, we need to check that. So for that, we basically need the user ID, right? So let's find the user ID here. Await user, right? Dot find and find one, like always been with the one user and email, and that is going to be decode, no, not like that, decoded and email, right? And from here we can get the user ID. So now we need to basically compare that. So like since it's an object ID, so basically we need to do is object, new object, and here we need to pass the basically the find to do since it's an array, right? So the zeroth index of that array, find to do dot created by, right? So find to do dot created by is going to be like containing the user ID since the created by is consisting of the user ID that has created this to string, and we are gonna check it like if it's not double equals new object, right? User ID underscore ID, right? So if it's not the same, right? If it's not the same thing, then also I need to like add this to string. Yeah. So if it's not the same thing, we need to like send an error response that we are not authorized to update this to do. Right? So let's return our next response that we are not, sorry, not we, like, you are not authorized to what, update this rule. And yeah, so let's have the status code for it. Let's forward the status code of that, like unauthorized status code. Like, okay, the server generating a 401 must send, okay. Well, that's right. I don't know from the target resource. Because I guess it's 403. Forbidden. Yeah. It is a forbidden. Like even though the user is a legit user, like who has gained access to the system, but that particular user is not actually authorized to perform this action. So the status code is going to be 403. Right? And yeah. So yeah, so I don't know if there's any more checks left. So we can like now directly update the to do. So const update to do, and there is going to be await to do, right? Dot find by ID and update. Yeah, find by ID and update. And then what we are going to be providing is basically the ID, like from where we are getting the ID, right? From the parents, like we are extracting the ID of the to-do. And here, what we can do is basically we need to set, right? Set the is completed, right? So that field is complete. Wait a minute, let me check my model. Um, the model. Oh, sorry. Rest of the model is complete, right? So is complete to true, right? Right. And now, uh, if we need to like, if we need to return the new and the updated document, then we can do that like, we would to like if we want to. And then what we can do is we can return next response.json, and that is going to be like sending us a success message basically to do updated success. So, right, and then we have a status code. This is a big status code from 200, and I guess that's pretty much fine, right? And okay, let's try it out basically. Let's test it out. Okay. So, okay, here we have like API slash, it's a patch request, right? Let's do the patch request and API slash, and it's going to be update. And we basically need to provide the to do it, which we can like easily retrieve from it, right? So, this is the only to do it. So the is complete is basically false here, right? So false. So once we update it, it should be getting true, right? So let's make a batch request. Since we are sending nothing to a request, but let it be empty. Let's send it, and it sends us an error. Why is that so? Basically, what was the error as we can see? So I think, yeah. Okay. So I guess we haven't recruited Jason with programs, Jason with like since we have like used it here. I think that is basically the error. That is why like it's just moving on to the catch now. I think like that. So let's try it again. Let's try to send it. And it says to do updated successfully. So now, if we try to fetch our to-dos, right? API to-dos, we would be able to see API my to-dos. Okay, so it's not a patch request, it's going to get request. We are going to be see, yeah, we can see that is complete is true, right? So since it's complete is true, like we are updating it from like not completed to completed, right? So our batch operations or the batch API is also working properly. So now what's next? It's basically we are left with the delete results, right? It is also going to be like of a similar pattern to update, right? So let's like try it out, right? It's very similar to this. Just we need to delete the row, right? The checks are also nearly similar to it. Okay, so okay, what am I doing now? Okay, so API and create a folder there that is delete, and also a folder inside of it that is basically since it is also going to be a dynamic route to do ID, we are going to be sending a to do ID to it. So inside of it, we want allow the changes, and let's um, like import the basic things we have written. Export function, right? And what's going to be the same function, and it is going to be a delete request, right? Yeah. So I guess there are certain things like that is going to be very similar. Let's first of all, make the try block and the catch block. That is what they have been there. So let's pick up certain things from because these are similar, right? Only to right clicking and okay, the try block this broken thing is going to be similar. Okay. So let's pick it up and let's paste it from and from token, okay, do we need any other library? We don't need any imports of this. Then what are the things that we have? Then we need to basically connect to the DB, right? That is also same to same as this. Right. Let's connect to our database. Right. And then the decoded thing is also going to be same, but make sure like we import the decoded like JSON web token as well, or else we can face error as we faced it the previous video. And what more like when we and then we also need the params, right? Obviously to fetch the totals, right? The params, and then what more do we need? It's basically we also have to find the to-do items. Yeah, we have to find the to-do. So let's find the to-do. And then what more do we need is like the same check, like if it's not found, then it's not found, right? And then what more? We also need the user ID, right? We also need the user ID. Okay, we found the user ID as well. And we also need to check, I guess. Yeah, we also need to check whether or not the user is authorized to delete the to do or not. So basically, we need to be copying it from here and then pasting it here, right? So yeah, so that is also same as before. And then finally, instead of updating the to do, what we are doing here, like update, we just need to delete the to do, right? So how can we achieve that response? Then delete to do, and then we can go for await. And what should we do is to do dot find by ID and delete, right? And we have the ID, right? So what is the ID? It is params, right? So yeah, that's it, right? So it will basically delete that to do, right? So let's return next response and dot JSON, right? And what we need to do is basically send a success message, right? Success to do deleted successfully, like, and the status is going to be 200. And yeah, and also need to import the user model, like we're using a user model there. So app models and there is the user model. So you also need the user model, right? And I don't think there's anything else to improve. So now let's test this out in Postman. Okay, so we have the ID here. Let's pick it up. And okay, we can basically you know, so into delete slash then the ID. And if the ID is wrong, let's test it out. Oh, the ID is wrong, let's send it. Let's like go into the catch block, like it's basically cannot actually find it, so it's going to the error. So the idea is perfect. Then why is this happening now? API slash delete slash. Okay, I think again we have made some mistake here. Let's find it out. And what's the mistake? Okay. So I think we haven't imported the connect DB, right? Which we should have, I think. Okay, so we forgot. And yeah, so let's test it out with this. And yeah, it shows an error that we cannot find for this. Like, since we have provided an invalid object ID, now if we provide the valid one, so it shows us success. That is, to do related successfully, right? Okay. So, like we can also test it back as well. Like if we do API my Todos And if we make a get request, we are going to be getting an empty array. So there is no problem, right? So yeah, so all our APIs are pretty much working fine. And yeah, so with this, we have came to an end of our video where we have created all the APIs that are basically required to, like, complete the backend of this simple full stack to REST application, right? And in the next video, what we are going to be doing is basically integrating all these APIs into the front end, like displaying the data and, like, making requests and all that. Like, in short, if I have to sum up, we are going to be basically connecting the backend with the front end, right? And basically, like, you know, um, so like, like creating the end-to-end application, full stack application. And yeah, so that's all for this video. I hope you like it. Like, if you have got to learn something new today from this video, if you got any value from this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And also do comment if you find, like, like, anything, like, you can actually, like, if you find that something could have been better, like, you can actually suggest that in the comment section. And yeah, so you can, like, go ahead with that. And yeah, that's all for today's video. And I will see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.